Whoa. Hello. And I do want to say I am biased. I want to start out with that. I love Twilio. So you could try to get me to say something bad about them, but it's unlikely. So just keep that in mind. Like Corey said, I'm Anna Yeager. And the problem that we're trying to solve is that there's a dire shortage of emergency shelter, especially for survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking. I feel like I'm like blowing folks away. Am I overly loud, or are we okay? All right, good. Oh, I have a clicker. So when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, sleep is one of those needs that's at the foundation of the pyramid. We need sleep. Without a safe place to sleep, we become vulnerable and we start making compromises to get that basic need met. Amba Johnson, who is the executive director of Dreamcatcher over in Oakland, argues that the dichotomy between runaway and homeless youth and trafficked youth is a false dichotomy. They know from a study in New Orleans and a program here in Oakland that within 48 hours of going homeless, 1/3 of youth have been approached by an exploiter. And within 72 hours, 3 days, 1/3 of youth have traded sex for basic needs like food, transportation, and a bed. And we know that it's not just youth who are exploited when they're vulnerable. Survivors of domestic violence, people with developmental disabilities, mental health issues, we're all at risk if we don't have a safe place to sleep. And as an example, as you probably know, in this country, even in a place as resource rich as San Francisco, we don't have enough beds. So as an example, at Dreamcatcher in Oakland, they are the only shelter to provide beds for youth 13 to 18 years old who are runaway and homeless or exploited. And they have a total of 8 beds. Oakland is home to over 400,000 people, and cities of similar size and demographics report an average count of 2,000 homeless youth on a daily basis. 2,000 youth to 8 beds. So getting people into shelters not only allows them a good night's sleep, but it allows them other wraparound services like meals, medical care, therapy, job counseling. So it's really important that we get folks into shelter. Everyone deserves a safe place to sleep. But my organization, we're a nonprofit, and we work with technology. We can't build or run shelters, right? So we looked for another way to help. And just briefly, Caravan Studios, we are a division of TechSoup. Has anybody ever heard of TechSoup? Awesome, that's great. If you are a nonprofit or work with a nonprofit, they should know about TechSoup. What we do is we get product donations into the hands of nonprofits. We work with large organizations like Microsoft, Cisco, Adobe, Symantec, and we get those donated products into the hands of nonprofits, libraries, and faith-based organizations. And we are in the unique position of understanding what resources and needs nonprofits have. They're telling us on a daily basis. And we also embrace technology and innovation. So we're in a unique position to work with nonprofits. And we've got a community-centered design process. You've probably heard of human-centered design. This is community-centered design, where we get a community of people together to talk about what needs they have. Not what technology they need, because they'll say, can you help me with my website? Or can you help me with a Kickstarter campaign? But what really gets in the way of delivering their impact. So in partnership with Polaris, who runs the National Human Trafficking Hotline, we launched the Safe Shelter Collaborative. And that, I went the wrong way, sorry. So the Safe Shelter Collaborative was designed to improve access to urgently needed shelter for a greater number and diversity of survivors of human trafficking and domestic violence. Quickly, the way it works, I'm gonna just go over here. The individual who needs help, the survivor, talks to an agency. They never know about or touch our technology. They talk with an agency who can give them help. If the agency doesn't have a bed, the agency can log into our system and put out a request to other shelters in the area to see if they have a bed that might meet the need. If they can't find a bed in a timely way, they can escalate to an app called Safe Night, which we also built, to crowdsource funds for hotels as emergency shelter, short-term emergency shelter. So talking a little bit about impact. So we used to hear that it would take hours and many, many phone calls to find a bed, especially for folks who had larger needs. And in this one case, one of the shelters who was participating said that they had a transgender client who was able to make one phone call and find a bed. And that was unheard of before. So we're looking at how we can educate shelters, but also put out the information they need to be able to say, we might have a bed. So I have 3 takeaways for you if you're thinking about doing social good projects. Who here has done a social good project? Who here is thinking about doing a social good project? Great. Why are the rest of you here? Oh, just, sorry. So I love this quote. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has happened. Nonprofits, especially direct service nonprofits, are operating in a constant state of stress. And communicating clearly in times of stress is hard. And technology can help us, but we often make it harder by introducing technology that adds more stress by getting in the way or being difficult to use or understand. Technology should enable communication, not hinder it. That's why I love Twilio. So this today is a story about how simple communications technology made a palpable difference in people's lives. In this project, we work with domestic violence and anti-trafficking agencies. And in our project kickoff, we heard from the 21 shelters there that if they didn't have a bed, that it would often take 2 to 10 hours to locate shelter for a survivor. 2 hours was for the easy ones, you know, single, female, no kids. But 10 hours was often for youth and people with more complex needs. So, and survivors, they can't wait hours, right? You can lose someone in hours. You will literally, they will get up and walk away if you can't help them right then and there. So we put in place a safe shelter collaborative system to allow the shelters to send out the alert. And those shelters in their region are asked to respond to the alert within 30 minutes. And they are asked to say whether they may or may not have a bed. We don't ask them to commit to a bed. Incredibly, now open beds are being identified in an average of under 5 minutes. So from hours to minutes, making the process faster through the use of technology is literally saving people's lives. I believe that we've been successful in reducing the time from hours to minutes because we've made the technology fit in with their existing process, and we made the communications transparent and understandable. So know your audience. You've all heard that before. Involve your community in the process of design or selection. This is the most critical takeaway, so if you only take one thing from me today, please let it be this. And it's so important, I'm going to hold my notes, so I apologize. While you must map out what you think the system should do and can do, you must ask your actual users, not the proxies for the users, but the actual users, and understand what motivates them and what scares them, right? What's going to get in their way. Instead of putting together a system for them, invite them into the design process so they are building with you. Have multiple conversations with multiple users at multiple levels of the organizations on your project. Ask them, what keeps them up at night? That was a great question that we got good answers to. What keeps them up at night? What gets in their way? What are they scared of? What sort of devices do they use? Landlines, flip phones, smartphones, laptops? What technology are they already familiar with and already using? Think about how you can use the design process to bring different perspectives together, and so that they can help you create a solution that they can all use. Not something that one or two people in the organization can use, but everybody else goes, oh, I don't know, it's that thing that Tiffany uses. I don't know what it does. You really want to get people in the organization involved. We did this by bringing together the organizations and taking their intake forms, actual pieces of paper that they used to fill out to process when clients came in or called in. So we pulled together their intake forms and we looked at the data across all of the forms to understand what is the minimum set of data that they required to be able to say, we might have a bed. Just like the last speaker was talking about, we did not want to have data that we did not need to have, right? We do not want to put people at risk. Human trafficking organizations are often large, organized crime networks with a lot of money at their disposal, and they will have no qualms about hiring a hacker to hack in and to track or stalk someone. So we didn't want to have any data that we didn't need to have. After you work with the users to gather the requirements and understand what they really need and what concerns them, I urge you to test your design with those actual users. Again, not proxies, not people who say, I know what my team needs, but with the actual users. Watch how they use it. See what benefits they're seeing. Ask them explicitly what benefits they're seeing and what challenges get in the way. One of my colleagues told me about this time where this library, they were having a really hard time figuring out why they were having such a hard time. Turns out the person was on a phone, and then the phone cord wasn't long enough to get to the computer, so she'd put down the phone and walk over to her computer and do the work. Then she'd come back to the phone. And she only discovered that when she was actually watching them try to use the technology. And as you encourage your community's engagement in the project, you'll be encouraging them to build relationships together and with each other. They will understand that they have helped build something together, and they will be more invested in the outcome, and they are more likely to use the system for the community as a whole. And as an example, with our prototype, we were planning on sending our primary alerting mechanism was going to be a text message. Right? We were going to have people enter the data about the survivor, and then we were going to text the shelters. And it's only when we got on the phone with them on a webinar where we were going through the design where they revolted. They said, we don't have one phone number that can receive text messages 24/7. We just don't have it. In fact, some of the agencies didn't even have cell phones, and the staff didn't want to use their personal phones to receive crisis alerts 24/7. It just wasn't fair. So we heard it loud and clear on that. We had heard it a little bit before, but we're like, it'll be fine. No, we heard it loud and clear on that design webinar, and we pivoted. Thankfully, Twilio allowed us to add automated voice calling very quickly. And so we set that up because the one thing that each of these shelters did have was a landline. So they were able to receive phone calls when they couldn't receive text messages. So if we hadn't had those regular design calls with our users, we never would have really understood the impact of the design decision that we had made. And the process of building together will build trust and a common understanding of what you're trying to build together. Relationships are critical to the work that we all do. Nothing of significance would happen without them. In fact, the work of nonprofits cannot happen without strong relationships. When we started working with the domestic violence agencies in New Jersey, they already had pre-established relationships with one another. Some were good and trusting, and some were downright poisonous. When we spoke with organizations, the wealthier shelters, they said, you know, those other shelters, they're gonna dump their tough clients on us. And what they really meant was, those shelters are gonna send us clients who we have to spend more time and more money helping because they have more needs. And that means that we can help fewer people. So that was their perspective. From the smaller shelter side, what they were thinking was, I don't have psychiatric care, I don't have substance abuse program, I don't have childcare. I can't meet the needs of this person who has more complex needs. So let me see if there's another shelter who does have more resources who can help. Sorry. So when we put in the Safe Shelter Collaborative, the platform itself made the asking for and offering of shelter more transparent. They were able to see, everybody was able to see who was requesting shelter and how frequently. They could see the profile of the survivors. And then it was also logged who responded and said they might have a bed or not, or who wasn't responding at all. So by putting it in a platform, that helped cut through some of the stress and the politics that are born of the stressful work that they do every day. And I believe makes it more transparent. And after a few months, we surveyed people and asked them, and after the first few months, I never heard of any shelters talking about dumping clients. In fact, after we surveyed them, 100% of the participating agencies said that they would recommend this platform to other agencies who were doing the same work. So I argue that good technology facilitates better communications. Better communications facilitate stronger relationships, and relationships power the work that we do every day. So please, I urge you to design technology that enables those relationships. Okay, and now I'm gonna do a quick demo of the actual system. Okay, so on the left, oh, you don't see that. How do I make it turn over? Escape. Oops, sorry, let me go back. Escape. Nope. I'm not in presenter mode. So let me get out of presenter mode.
It's split between two different screens. So okay.
This is why we keep you here.
Oops, the other one. That's cool, I got it. Okay, so the browser window that you see on the left, imagine that's the shelter requesting, they're working with a client, they're requesting space. And the phone on the right is the responding shelter. So we use a design paradigm that we like to call the BAB, the big ass button. In nonprofits, their focus is on the client, not on how to make the technology work. So we put in this big giant orange button that tells them what to do when they get to the page. They can put in a case reference number. We ask them not to put in any personally identifiable information. They can choose an age range. Again, this is to protect the privacy of survivors as much as possible. Gender identity. Whether or not they have accompanying children. I'm going to say no for now, but if you did put in accompanying children, then they would, we would ask the gender identity and age range of the children too. History of violence or self-harming behaviors. If they have mental health concerns. And you'll notice on a lot of these, we also have a none option or none disclosed option or unsure, because it's hard when you're working with individuals you don't always know. So English proficiency, type of trafficking or violence they've suffered, and whether or not they have a physical disability. Then when I send the request, you'll see alerts right up there. The request was sent successfully. And my phone here is getting a phone call.
Greetings from the Safe Shelter Collaborative. An agency has an urgent need for a bed, and you can help. Please log in to your Safe Shelter Collaborative account to respond to this bed request as soon as possible. Thank you.
So they can choose what kind of notifications they want to receive. I also received a text message. And then I can log in. I'm already logged in. I cheated a little bit. And I can go to the locate a shelter bed portion. And I can now see the data that was input by the requesting shelter. So we determined through working with the shelters that these were the 3 most important pieces of information: age range, gender identity, and whether or not there were children involved. Then you can view more details and see the rest of the information. Then we ask them to say whether they may have a bed or no, or if no beds are available. When you click on we may have a bed, both the responding agency and the receiving agency get this alert so that they can go and check their information. So on this side, there we go. First, it's under no response before somebody responds. Sorry, it's a little slow. I can see if nobody has responded. I have a tab for no beds available and then possible beds. So I'm gonna just refresh here. Not sure why it's not refreshing. Okay, so I can then see that there's a possible bed, and I can see which agency has said they might have a possible bed. I can then put the survivor directly in touch with the responding shelter so that they can go through their normal intake process. And I can, for data purposes, close this request and indicate what the result was. So in this case, I'm gonna say that there was a successful placement. Okay. So that was a very quick demo. Here's some of the code. You'll notice it is not overly complex. I was talking with our developers. I was like, what challenges did we have? Give me a good story. And they said, we don't have any challenges. We just followed the documentation and it worked. And I was like, come on, give me something. They're like, sorry, we don't have anything for you. So this is the call to send a text message to the shelters to alert them that there's a need for a bed. Then this is the voice call to set up that automated call. And one of the great things, we started out with an automated message, the computer talking like this. And so we found that people didn't like that. So we got one of our colleagues who has a nice, pleasant voice. She's the voice that you heard on the call. And we were able to put her voice in so that people could feel better about the call they were getting. It's funny that that was one of the things that they reacted to. So in closing, I've just got a few quick tips for you, especially for folks who are going to work with domestic violence, runaway and homeless youth, or anti-trafficking agencies. So one of the key principles that we keep in mind when we're doing our work is maintaining the dignity and privacy of the people who we're trying to help, right? Otherwise, why are we doing it? If we're going to expose them or embarrass them or put them in danger, there's no point. The organizations they are hungry for new technology. They're hungry for solutions that will answer the problems and the challenges that they're facing. However, their priority is always their clients, especially in direct service organizations. You do want to involve them in the design, but keep in mind that they will prioritize their clients and in a lot of these direct service organizations, there's major turnover. People leave because it's exhausting, stressful, hard work battling evil. So that turnover and that lack of attention affects the pace of design and adoption. So don't get frustrated if you have to go over the same things with different people. And also let that inform your work. The solutions should fit within their existing process. Innovation is great. We wholly embrace innovation. I think this was pretty innovative, a use of technology, but it fit within their existing process, right? So it wasn't wholly new. It was replacing what they did every day. They just called the places, and instead of them calling the places, we called the places for them. And finally, especially if you're working with human trafficking and domestic violence, assume you will be hacked or your technology would be found. So while you might have a great idea, you must assume that a perpetrator will find it and use it with evil intent. So please don't put people at risk by creating a great technology that just alerts somebody to the possibility that their survivor is going to leave. So that's it. Thanks, I'm Anna Yeager, and we can be found at Caravan Studios.